Dr. Asmahan Al-Wafi has background in biotechnology, and she has headed the International Center for Biosalinity in Dubai. And now she is the chief scientist of Food and Agriculture Organization, World Food and Agriculture Organization. Dr. Asmahan is there?
Yes, Dr. Adel.
Oh, sorry for taking some time from you, but this is done always, maybe. Thank you. Thank you,
no
Dr.
worries
Asman.
at all. I hope you can see my screen. I'm trying.
Yeah, we hear you loud and clear, please.
Presentation.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, perfect. So thank you very much, Dr. Adel. Thank you very much, IDDC, and it's really nice to see many colleagues around. I mean, those that I can see on the screen at least, both remotely and in Egypt. سامحوني أنني ماني معكم in person, but really a pleasure to talk after you, Dr. Adel. And I think I'm going to skip some of my slides as you very well described many of the things I wanted to bring in. I'm going to a little bit give the global challenges, and I'm going to skip some of them as Adel, really, Dr. Adel brought them in very, very nicely. I'm going to give you.
Yes. So.
Whereas we see huge impact on Africa agriculture and Africa human being. So it is really nice to see COP coming to Egypt and then to the United Arab Emirates. And it is very important to seize this opportunity to talk very loudly about really the issues around climate change and how much of it is really affecting our food security and nutrition security as well. So FAO, in collaboration with many organizations, brings forward always what we call the SOFI reports. The SOFI reports in 2022 again shows us that not for the first time, but for the last few years, we have really an upsurge of food insecurity and malnutrition. And it is really getting worse than we thought. So we are in many ways losing the little gain that we did with the international development programs. So this year, and the numbers are for 2021, we have 828 million people that suffer from hunger. And if we look at the numbers and how much it has increases, you look 2019 to 2020, we have 150 million more, not less, whereas we have agreed that we can reduce it. Between 2020 and 2021, we have 46 million more. The numbers are really, it bears the question, what are we doing? What are we doing really wrong? And why we are going up in numbers of food insecure people and malnourished people rather than down? COVID-19 was one of the reasons, and definitely COVID-19 affected very much the agri-food system and the supply chain. It increases struggles for farmers to access to the market. We had shortage of labor. We have transport restriction. We have perishable commodities that increase the food waste and loss and not decrease it. We saw plastic coming up. Now with the food crisis, with the Ukraine and Russia war, we are seeing again a huge disruption in the food supply chain. So definitely when we look at it, the major drivers, and we see them very much, and it's very clear in WFP reports, as well as FAO, the biggest issue is conflict. And then the second one, it's climate variability and extreme and climate change that Dr. Adil very well outlined to us. So definitely we need to pay attention to those mega areas that we need really to target, knowing that in addition to these two and to the COVID-19, we have a number of other problems, including biodiversity loss, including inequalities and what have you. So what FAO has done is really provide 6 pathways to address major drivers behind recent food security and malnutrition. And those at the heart of it, it's reducing inequalities and reducing vulnerabilities. By reducing inequalities and vulnerabilities, you see very clearly that we need to do much more in dry land, because in dry land, we have huge vulnerability, but also in dry land, we have huge inequalities. And unfortunately, we have a huge number of very poor people that live out of marginal environments and in dry land particularly. So, and that takes me really to my slides whereby I'm trying to explain why should we care? Why should we pay attention to dry land ecosystem? And one of the reasons is we have about 2 billion people that live in dry land ecosystem. And this is distributed over about 100 countries, and 90% of them are in developing countries. We have the majority of them in Africa. We have a huge number in Asia, as well as in Latin America and Europe. And 44% of the world agricultural productive land is in marginal environments. So we need to produce more, not less. So we need to pay attention and find solutions for dry land ecosystem to produce better and produce more. And we have 25% of the world forests are in dry land, and 25% of global dry land are grasslands, whereas only 14% are cropland. So definitely all of this give us really the need to look at those dry land. And also we have to keep in mind that we have hotspots in the dry land. In the dry land, we have both hotspots for biodiversity, to stop degradation, and also for climate change. So the hotspot, let's see, approach is that we recognize right now that we have areas in the world whereby if we intervene, the impact is much higher. So the hotspot in biodiversity means that there are certain ecosystems and certain areas that if we protect them, we increase biodiversity much more and we protect biodiversity much more. The same thing for climate change. So some of the hotspots are in those dry land. Also the dry land are important because, as I said earlier, they have a huge number of people and they have really 4 threats that in the combination of those 4 threats, be it the climate change, the water scarcity, the land degradation, and the biodiversity loss, make us really that they have a huge number of people in those dry land that are in those numbering, this 828 million people that goes to bed hungry every night. I think climate change impact has been very clearly stipulated by Dr. Adil at the beginning of his presentation. So what we want to keep in mind, and I think for me, what's happening lately, be it the forest fire in Australia, and luckily social media worked for us to understand it better. What happens lately in Pakistan with the deadly floods, but also we should not forget about the Sahel region and many of the region, dryland region, that are seeing much more hotter times and very, very disturbed cycle. So the cycle, the crop cycle that we know, that we have studied, have been disrupted very much by climate change. So climate change is a reality. It is aggravating food insecurity and malnutrition, and we need to keep it in mind. And when we talk about high temperature, for agriculture, what is very important for agriculture, it's 2 things. One of them, it's the water scarcity. So basically, with the same drop of water, you could have produced much more before the heat or before the plus 1.5 degrees, the plus 3 or the plus 5, whatever scenarios it is. So the temperature means you need much water to produce the same thing. Whereas again, the purpose is that we produce much more with much less. So water scarcity is increasing at an alarming rate. And unfortunately, the region, the MENA region or the NINA region, gonna be one of those countries, those regions that's gonna have a huge problem in terms of agriculture. The reason behind it, it's really the scarcity of water, but also the increase of the other sectors. So agriculture right now is using 80% of the water, but in the future, that 80% is gonna go much more lower because other high priority sector will require that water. When we look at the data in the Arab region, not the MENA region, but the Arab region, for example, you could see again that food and nutrition insecurity, it's really increasing and it's affecting millions of people because of water scarcity, because of climate change, let alone the conflict that we mentioned earlier. So in the region, we have about over 60% of the region people that live in areas that are high surface water stress. And Dr. Adel brought us the numbers and clarified the numbers that are used to call a place water stress or another denominator. We have about 70% of the region GDP that is generated in areas with high to very high surface water stress compared to the global average of about 22%. So we are about 3 times to 3.5 times higher in terms of water stress than the global average. The cost of poor water quality in the region ranges between 0.5% to 2.5% of GDP. And that's money and the resources that we could use for other areas like education and health and others. And the MENA region has the greatest expected economic loss from climate-related water scarcity that is estimated 6 to 14% of our GDP by 2050. So definitely the region has a huge water scarcity issues, and the total water productivity is only half of the world average. We have issues in terms of quality as well of water, not only quantity. So we have the quantity issues, but we have also the quality issues. We have problems as well with salinization and solidification of certain land and waters. So here in this slide, what I want to clarify is that really the other big threat that we have to keep in mind is that as soil becomes drier, they're more vulnerable to desertification. Desertification threatens 25% of the earth land, and it has a cost about $42 billion every year. And just to give you an analogy, that's about the money that the developed countries have promised in COP26. They have promised that they're going to provide about $40 billion for helping with climate change adaptation, particularly for the least and middle income countries. So desertification threats per se make us lose about that money on every year. The dry land contains over 35% of the total global salt active soils, or about 831 million hectares. And we have to keep in mind that, again, salinization, it's one of the issues that happens because of climate change, because of degradation, and because of low quality of water. All of this to tell you that soil degradation is expensive, as water scarcity and climate change is very expensive. So what does FAO do in MENA? I want to start with a video that explains a little bit our work in FAO on the MENA region, and then I'll come back.
Do you hear me, Dr. Asman?
Can you hear us? Can you hear the
No,
video?
no, now we can, yes, yes, okay, please,
So I have to
please, you
share
have
with you.
about, we lost you for about 3 minutes, I think.
So let me.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you. Do you hear it now?
Oh, yes, yes, loud and clear. Go ahead,
Yeah.
please. Yeah, the video is clear.
So let me go back to the presentation.
Please.
And then I hope that you can see it. Oh, is that now? That's not the presentation. So let me then, I'm sorry. My apologies. I hope you can see my, I'm gonna bring back my screen. So hopefully that you could see the presentation. No, then I have to go back and my apologies. So basically now I'm moving into what do we do for agriculture for the MENA region in FAO. And what I wanna share with you, it's mostly some programs that have been particularly done for the region. I have a number of them that I wanna just remind you of their importance and maybe give you a few examples that we can use to highlight what FAO is doing in the MENA region as a whole. And for some reason, I can't see my slides, whereas I have my presentation already. Okay, bear with me, it won't be long. Yeah, here we go, now I can see it. So basically, FAO has a number of programs that are addressing the dryland at large, particularly in the region. So we have different programs around soil conservation and fertility management. We have many around increased awareness on access to technologies and innovation. Other programs include agroecology technologies or forest and landscape restoration mechanism, and so on and so forth. We have the WASAC program, which is the Water Scarcity Initiative, that actually started from the region and then became global. Maybe I want to bring forward two examples that are very specific and maybe quite important for this meeting and this discussion. The first one is a program called Dryland Sustainable Landscape, a sustainable forest management impact program that is in partnership with JEF, IUCN, World Bank, UNCCD, World WWF, and the WOCAT. And this called for a critical action and means to sustainably manage the available water resources in the dry areas. We are covering 11 countries Some of them are in Africa and some in Asia. And also the expected results are very high, both in terms of carbon sequestration, but mostly in terms of restoration of dry land in those countries. The second program that I want to bring forward is towards a global program on sustainable dry land agriculture. And it's a program that started out of QUAG meeting. And the objective of this program is to improve food and nutritional security, livelihood and environment sustainability in dry land again. And this covers a number of countries and number of agri-food systems. Maybe with that, a segue to what we do in general, how FAO is deciding the way forward. And the way forward for us, and my colleague, Dr. Abd Hakim mentioned it at the beginning, is that we have a new strategic framework for the next decade starting this year, 22 to 31. And the whole strategic framework is around transformation of agri-food system. There is a recognition now past UN Food System Summit last year that agri-food system go beyond really the food and the agriculture only. And the agri-food system should not include only the producers. It is include all the sectors from infrastructure to health to environment to the consumers. As I always say, we could survive without a phone, but we cannot survive without food. So food and water, of course. So that's where we are putting our narrative around increasing the efficiency, the inclusiveness, and the nutrition value of our agri-food system by moving towards four betters: a better production, a better nutrition, a better environment, and better life. And what is very clear in FAO strategic framework is that to get to these four betters and to get to agri-food systems that are more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable, we do need science, technology, and innovation. And that's where we developed our science and innovation strategy that was approved last June by our governing body, by the council. Right now, we are finalizing the action plans at the regional level. And of course, both Africa and the MENA region are very important when we talk about dry land, but also there are dry land in the other regions that are very important for us. And hence, we are developing very specific programs for those regions. So the science and innovation strategy, it's really to help the country members, the 194 member states, to how they can use better science, technology, and innovation. And we are doing so by really supporting them in strengthening the science and evidence-based decision-making, which is very much needed. And we see a huge difference between North and South in that perspective, but also helping them to have more accessibility to innovation and technology. And this is where universities like Ain Shams is very important, because by providing to do better in terms of decision-making based on science, to increase accessibility, it happens when we work very closely with knowledge generator universities, people that are forming the youth that can help us in the future. Again, universities and the research institution. And the third pillar of our strategy, it's really to reinforce our capacity as an organization, and that include partnership to serve better the 194 members. To close, we have a Science and Innovation Forum coming up from the 17th to the 21st of October. This forum, it's organized in combination with the World Food Forum, which is a youth-led week, and the Investment Forum. So we have the youth, we have science, technology, and innovation, and we have investment within the same week, talking about how could we really transform our agri-food system to meet our sustainable development goals and global development agenda, and particularly to reduce inequalities between South and North. So I know that you have lots of young people in the room. I hope that many of them are going to join us. As a matter of fact, we have a research transformation challenge that is part of both the forum and the World Food Forum. So I hope that many of you will take it on. with that, I wanted to really to close with a positive note. A note that mostly to say that today more than ever, we need positive thinking. And we need science, technology, and innovation to help us do better. We recognize that we are really deeply, deeply in trouble because of climate change, because of us human, as many of you said. But we need now to really harness the technologies that we have, innovation that we have, knowledge that we know. We need to work more together, and we need to act right away. We cannot wait for the North to finance it. We cannot wait for the development bank to tell us, go ahead and include this variety or this crop or this agri-food system. We need our policymakers to understand this is a very turning point in history, whereby we could fail all of us or we could win all of us. So I think really the developing world need to act, and need to act by investing more in science, technology, and innovation, and in investing in young people. So I think today more than ever, we need to work and we need to act and we need to think about the farmer and the people that are in conflict region that have no other choices. Us as people sitting here, we are very privileged to be in this position, but we have also a lot of responsibility to make change. And I hope that change will show very clearly in COP27 coming to Egypt in few months. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Esmahan. I like your last slide with birds flying, but I hope they will land well, because we may fly, but we need to land in a safe mood. Thank you very much for this very comprehensive vision for the scientific aspects and research and development and innovation of FAO. Wish you all the best in your next meeting, because this will be very important. It will be before COP27, and I hope that you can bring the results of this meeting to the COP27, inshallah. Thank you. Stay safe. Bye. I hope you stay with us for some time if you can.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, it's really nice to see Dr. Sirajuddin healthy
great.
and happy. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.